Yeah, I'm Representative Ken Ivory. Thank you all for coming. I'm so grateful for our governor for taking leadership on this, grateful for our congressional delegation, and truly we stand on the shoulders of giants. This has been a team effort. This is what Team Utah looks like. This has been an effort through our Attorney General's office, through our governor's office, our SITLA lands, our community organizations, our education organizations, our legislature. So many people have been involved in what is happening here as a Team Utah effort. Now let's talk about a tale of two states. You've got North Dakota, if you see on there, the tiny little square, and then you've got Utah. They came into the Union at about the same time. 1879, 1884, North Dakota and Utah. The terms of their statehood with respect to disposing the land, transferring title to the public lands, virtually word for word identical. And yet the federal government controls 3% of the land in North Dakota, 65% of the land in Utah. North Dakota just added $3,700 per pupil above the national average in per pupil funding. Utah, coincidentally, is $3,700 below the national average in per pupil funding. To catch up to North Dakota on a per pupil spending basis would take $4 billion. To get to average would take $2 billion. Think about that. It would take $2 billion just to get to average. So why now? Congressman Bishop mentioned a little bit about why now. $2 billion to get to average. Some people have said, well, let's just tax our way out. Let's try harder. Well, guess what? To tax our way out, we'd have to more than double the income tax, killing our economy like Illinois and California has found out. Or we could increase the corporate tax by more than 900% and drive all of our companies out of the state under the guise of increasing funding to education and taking care of our public services. Now, in addition to the $2 billion education funding gap, we have $5 billion of our $13 billion budget that is federal funds from a fiscally unsustainable federal government. Everyone's been telling us it's not a matter of if, it's only when and how soon that funding begins to diminish to our state. Why now? Also, why now? 3 years ago, the United States Supreme Court unanimously declared that Congress cannot diminish, and this is their words, the uniquely sovereign character of a state's admission into the Union. And they said this applies particularly so where virtually all of a state's public lands are at stake. Congress can't diminish the uniquely sovereign character of our admission as a state. Why now? We've got Supreme Court authority. Just this week, the Supreme Court unanimously decided a case, the Sackett case, and said it's unthinkable that the federal government could use strong-arm tactics over private property. It's unthinkable. We agree. We agree. It's unthinkable that our children are $2 billion below average in per pupil funding. It's unthinkable that we're dependent, dangerously dependent, $5 billion of our $13 billion budget on a fiscally irresponsible federal government. We agree. It's unthinkable. So, what if we don't? What if we don't? People have said it's hard. Sure, it's hard. What if we don't? Our good Senator Lee, early on in this effort, he was so helpful in the legal analysis as we were working on this early on. He said, we'll stand to account. If the promises are the same, and they are, only the performance is different, we'll stand to account for our children for leaving that on the table. We'll stand to account in the future of our state in social services and taking care of our poor, taking care of our sick, taking care of our roads, educating our children. We'll stand to account if we're unwilling to stand up now because it might be hard. Promises are the same, only the performance is different. So now, this is just the beginning of what Team Utah looks like. This is the beginning of what Team Utah looks like. It's time for us to stand as the model to the western states and the model to the nation of what it means to be self-reliant and free. This is not just a Utah matter. Certainly this will unleash employment and increase our economic activity in Utah, but this is also a national matter. This unleashes employment in the nation. This solves debt and deficit issues nationally if we unleash the resources responsibly. This is not just a matter of chest thumping in Utah. This is a matter of providing for the education of our children and the long-term self-reliance of our state. So this is the beginning of what Team Utah looks like. This is the beginning to be the model to the western states and to the United States of what it means to be self-reliant and free. We passed out a little card, and on that card you've got a link to a Facebook page and a link to a website. We're going to keep adding more and more resources so that you can get up to speed on on what and why this is important, what it means, what the background is. We've had so many people helping to research and helping to put together these materials. Share them with your friends. Like the Facebook page. Go to the website. Check back often as we continue to build the education, as we learn to teach others and be that model. Thank you so much for being involved. This is our time. This is our time as Utah, because Utah leads the way. That's what we do. Utah leads the way, and it's time for us to move forward. Thank you so very much.